More than 7 hours after the rescue and evacuation effort began, emergency workers were worried some people might still be trapped in the uppermost floors of the 110-story Twin Towers. People who by now would be scared.
If there's somebody trapped out there, what must they be going through right now?
Panic, a feeling of total isolation, the forgottenness. The world has just forgotten them and they're all on their own.
All afternoon, they'd climbed the stairs going floor to floor. Early on, it was a slow process, trying to get thousands of people out through smoke and darkness.
We will go every floor,
Right.
floor by floor. You have a methodical type of, search, and you make certain that you cover every area, and every elevator has to be open. We have to be certain that there's no one in those elevators.
The rescue effort was more grisly and difficult down below, near the epicenter of the violent blast. That's where firefighters saw people dead, trapped in their cars, and where they found themselves having to rescue one of their own.
We were searching for people, and all of a sudden the floor wasn't there. It fell into a hole, about 60 feet. He's got 2 broken legs, and I hope he's going to be all right.
Firefighters tell us it was Kevin Shea who was injured. 2 years ago, he made headlines with this daring rescue. Tonight, he may no doubt be in pain. The sheer size of the World Trade Center made the rescue efforts a giant task. Firefighters say trying to reach those trapped on the high floors was a slow process because of the smoke and just the number of stairs they had to climb. But the biggest problems were near the epicenter of the explosion that rocked this financial center.
We could hear some guy yelling to us on the other side of this tremendous hole. I imagine he could hear us. We were trying to make a racket. My company was trying to work around this tremendous hole to get to him. We were unable to. The structural damage is tremendous. I imagine he even had to come in from the other building or another area.
But it was in the lower level of the World Trade Center where the fire was, where people were in most danger, and where the would-be rescuers found themselves in trouble. One firefighter found the floor collapsing beneath him.
We were searching for people, and all of a sudden the floor wasn't there. It fell into a hole, about 60 feet. He's got 2 broken legs, and I hope he's going to be all right.
Workers trapped on the highest floors of the World Trade Center say they kept waiting for rescuers to arrive, and they waited in vain.
We have people in a wheelchair. We had no help for them at all. Nothing. We're walking down dark, pitch dark, stairways. There's no fresh air at all. We were up there for 2.5 hours.
We were pretty much on our own. There was no fire alarm or anything like that up there. Just there was a loud bang and the building kind of shook. And there really wasn't anybody up there.
We were on the scene and it was handled professionally.
More than 100 floors of stairs and smoke made the rescue slow going on those high floors. One pregnant woman had to be evacuated by helicopter from the roof. But the real horror story here was in the garage level of the World Trade Center. That's where the explosion was, that's where the fire was. That's where firefighters were seriously injured, and they found people dead, trapped in their cars.
There was a man still sitting in his car, and you could tell he was dead. And I didn't even get close to him, because as we were getting into that area, our man got hurt, and that's what we were concerned with. But as far as I know, he was dead.
At 12:18 p.m., World Trade Center Tower number 1 became a tower of smoke. Hundreds of workers and visitors were first stunned by the sound of the explosion, then attacked by clouds of fumes and debris.
I was sitting in my chair, and all of a sudden I just felt an explosion. I flew out of my chair, and they just made us evacuate the building within like 15 minutes.
You work at an office on the 25th floor. What did you hear or see?
I actually saw the wall shaking. I thought it was an earthquake or something. Like all the computers went off, everything just went off. It sounded like a bomb or a bang or something, or a pop. I can't really explain it.
How much smoke was there? There obviously was some because you're covered with it. How much did you see, and to what extent were you nervous about it?
We were on the 25th floor and going down till about, I'd say, the 10th flight. There wasn't that much smoke. From 10 all the way down to 1, you couldn't really see anything at all, and it was dark, and people had flashlights, and they just helped everybody out of the building.
And Was anybody telling you what to do? How did you know what to do?
There was somewhat panic, but we just kept following everybody else down the stairs, and everyone was going faster, faster, and, you know, just telling everybody to cover your mouth and keep your head down. But it just kept getting darker and smokier as further you went down.
Fire Commissioner Carlos Rivera says despite problems up and down both the Trade Center Tower and adjacent Vista Hotel, the explosion and fire happened in an underground basement.
The fire was concentrated in one area, in that B2 level, and what they were trying to do is to deal with the people that were trapped in the other areas because of the smoke condition in the upper floors.
And where did the smoke go from all the way down there to where?
To the 96th floor. We had people self-evacuated. From the 96th floor, we had people from the 48th floor that firefighters removed.
Arriving ambulances were confronted with 2 dead victims, literally hundreds of injured, and at least 15 hurt seriously by flying debris.
It was the first fresh breath of air these people had inhaled in hours, and the first time they could see anything more than the person on the stair in front of them. But as they emerged from the smoke-filled stairway, their faces darkened with soot, handkerchiefs covering their mouths, the fear began to fade into anger.
That place is a death trap. Let me tell you something. There was smoke where there shouldn't be smoke. I was on the 107th floor, and we heard the bang, and that place filled up in 5 minutes.
Well, first we was told to go down the wrong stairwell. Then we came back and went down the right stairwell.
Falling glass rained from above. People still stuck upstairs, forced to shatter windows in order to breathe clean air. That created a dangerous path for those waiting to evacuate the building and those on their way out.
Keep on walking, thank you very much.
Hundreds were stuck on elevators in the World Trade Center. Only some of those were able to work their way to a nearby floor, where they too had to begin the dangerous trek down the long, darkened, smoke-filled stairway.
It was tough to breathe, very tough to breathe. Coming down the stairs, your eyes were burning.
Nobody was spared from the smoke-filled climb down the stairs. One after another, pregnant women emerged, some after inhaling the smoke inside for hours.
You were with 2 women.
2 women, one of them, 2 pregnant women, and I was taking the rest down. We were making a chain down with the pregnant women.
Did you think
it's the worst thing I could ever say could ever happen to anybody, because there are a lot of people still up there that aren't going to get down for hours, and the smoke is extremely thick.
It was an endless stream of people that continued for hours, emerging from the stairwell, soot covering their faces, and stepping for the first time on the ground floor. For some, it was a journey that started 100 or more floors higher, a darkened, smoke-filled staircase, their only lifeline to safety.
We were all breathing this down. We had hot people up there. We didn't have anybody taking care of them. I'm telling you, it was a mess.
There were people injured and no one taking care of them.
Nothing.
They let the women who were pregnant go on down, and everybody held their calm, did real well. Just the smoke was terrible.
And many of those women were in no condition to be breathing smoke or walking down 100 flights of stairs.
It didn't stop. The smoke was getting thicker, thicker, and thicker.
As you went lower?
Yeah.
You were with 2 women.
2 women, one of them, 2 pregnant women.
Once outside, clear of the smoke, broken glass rained from the floors above. People still stuck in offices above, breaking windows to get clean air.
Help each other out.
Keep on walking, thank you very much.
It was terrible. I came from the 64th floor, an aviation department, and it was miserable. At first we was told to go down the wrong stairwell. Then we came back and went down the right stairwell, but it was really a scary experience.
It was lunch hour when hundreds of World Trade Center workers and visitors normally flood the exits, but usually not like this. The one building rocked the area, smoke billowed upward at least 96 floors, almost to the top of the tower.
We just heard a big bang, the whole building shook. We just started to come down.
I actually saw the wall shaking. I thought it was an earthquake or something. Like all the computers went off, everything just went off. It sounded like a bomb or a bang or something, or a pop. I can't really explain it.
There was no announcement as far as what to do.
We just started tearing down the stairs.
The hallways filled up with smoke and we blew out of there.
We put our hand on the shoulder of the person in front of us, and then in an orderly manner we went down the stairs. Everyone did extremely well. Of course, I was in the Dean Witter group, but no one panicked. There was no screaming when the lights went out, and it was very orderly. We went down, it seems like maybe, I don't know, half a dozen flights like this in the pitch blackness until we saw a fireman somewhere around the 30th floor.
Everyone was going faster, faster, and just telling everybody to cover your mouth and keep your head down. But it just kept getting darker and smokier as further you went down.
Fire Commissioner Carlos Rivera says despite problems up and down both the Trade Center Tower and adjacent Vista Hotel, the explosion and fire happened in an underground basement.
The fire was concentrated in one area, in that B2 level, and what they were trying to do is to deal with the people that were trapped in the other areas because of the smoke condition in the upper floors.
And where did the smoke go from all the way down there to where?
To the 96th floor. We had people self-evacuated from the 96th floor. We had people from the 48th floor that firefighters removed.
Arriving ambulances were confronted with 2 dead victims, literally hundreds of injured, and at least 15 hurt seriously by flying debris.
Watch out, watch out, watch out!
A school bus full of kids has never been such a welcome sight as it was tonight at PS 95. And when the doors were open, it was pandemonium of joy.
Come on, sweetheart. Come on.
The 2 kindergarten classes were finally home after a day filled with worried parents and frightened kids, some of whom spent 3 hours on the frigid, snowy World Trade Center roof 110 floors above Manhattan before walking the entire way down the stairs. But the other class was trapped in a dark and smoky elevator, unable to let anybody know where they were.
It was terrible. We got on it and we got like to about the 70th floor, got stuck, and then it was pitch black. And we was in the dark like for 5 hours.
Just you and the kids in the elevator?
All the kids. We had 17 kids and 5 adults.
Did the smoke get into the elevator?
Yeah, we have all the kids with all the smoke all around their nose. We have it in their throats,
Did you know what had happened?
No. We still don't really know what happened.
The kids sang and prayed for 5 hours while the teacher and chaperones became more and more worried that no one would rescue them. Finally, firefighters found them stuck near the 35th floor.
So some of the children went up the ladder, just like you see, rescue, whatever. And then we were sent down slowly to the first floor, and the children were counting, and they saw we were happy.
I was a little scared.
What did you do all that time? You were there for 5 hours.
You cried. You cried?
I cried.
Parents who did not know where their kids were until 7 o'clock tonight also cried a bit, and all those 5-year-olds finally made it home.
The only thing I was thinking about was my child. That's all.
What did you think when you saw her coming off the bus?
I was happy that she was all right. And I'm glad she with me today.
First I hear they're outside waiting for the bus can't get to them. Then I hear that it's now confirmed they're out of the building, that they're in the building. Now I hear they're being escorted down the stairs.
All afternoon, parents sorted through the misinformation and waited not so patiently inside the lunchroom. No one had a clue what had happened to the kids until the bus pulled up and we all heard their amazing story.
The elevator broke down, so we had to stay there for about 6 hours.
When you were in it?
Yeah.
What did you do in there for 6 hours?
We panicked.
The kids told their parents how they were packed in like sardines, all 50 of them. 3 chaperones and 2 tourists from California in one elevator in pitch darkness.
They had cigarette lighters, and on and off they would give us light. And that's all the kids wanted, was a little bit of light. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. I want a little bit of light, then we shut it off. And thank God that we were able to get the elevator doors open for air.
Evelyn says the group prayed, sang songs, cried some tears, but never broke down.
The children were so brave, I couldn't believe it. We had some crying jags here and there. We had a couple of kids with asthma. But all in all, they were really unbelievable.
Police say the 911 call came in at 2:44. The caller saying there was a bomb inside the Empire State Building. Police began a floor-by-floor evacuation of all 102 floors. At 4:30, people were still coming out of the building. How quickly were people being told to leave the building?
Quick. It was pretty quick, actually.
You worried at any point that, given what happened at the World Trade Center?
I was pretty calm about it. But I got out, yeah.
We were having a party night to say goodbye to our clinical director. Sorry, this is heavy. We received notice that we had to evacuate the building immediately. Our food was downstairs. We left the building, Now we have quite a bit of food, which we're going to donate to a shelter.
The evacuation proceeded smoothly as people slowly left the building. Few seemed overly worried, but still cautious given the blast earlier at the World Trade Center.
Personally, I didn't want to leave, but he made it sound serious enough that especially when he told us about the World Trade Center.
So you heeded the warning?
Yeah.
This is what's left of floor B2. The blast ripped through the garage, knocking down walls and leaving behind a pile of cinder blocks and rubble. In most areas, it still looks like a dark, steamy dungeon full of smoke. There is no power in the sub-basement as firefighters clean up the area. You can see large holes in what used to be 24-inch concrete slabs. Even at this late hour, no one is sure if this area is safe.
In case it is unstable, we don't want to have any injuries.
Shortly after the explosion, emergency workers and Port Authority police rushed down into the PATH station. There were reports of people stuck in the trains, but in the confusion, no one knew what they would find.
It's dark, it's wet, and there's a few people in there, and they're not sure how many. We got a couple out, but I don't know how many people are left in there. But they're afraid the ceiling's going to collapse again, so everybody's getting out.
Officials say the explosion occurred just above the PATH concourse at 5 World Trade. The cinder block walls fell in, and that caused the ceiling above the PATH to collapse.
It looked like a bomb exploded. The walls, full cinder blocks were all over the place around the walls. The escalator was literally covered. They were looking for people underneath the trapped debris, but thank God they must have got everybody out.
I was blown across the room. Everything went black, and it felt like a tomb. Then the lights came on, safety lights, so we ran out just trying to find a way out.
Since there was no power inside, Jersey City police brought in a generator truck and lights. Cables had to be strung inside. And even as rescue workers were working to find anyone who was injured, they were in danger. This firefighter was injured when the floor below him collapsed.
This was supposed to be a pleasant side trip for honeymooners Paul and Melissa Beasley from Jacksonville, Florida. They were on the 107th floor sightseeing when the explosion rocked the building. The couple fled to the roof, where they were trapped for 3 hours.
I was very scared. I mean, you hear people, just trying to get down, and, you hear buzzers everywhere, and it was just very scary in the dark. So I'm just glad I'm alive.
Melissa and Paul say that everyone was confused and no one seemed to know what to do.
When we were standing on a roof with about 300 people, that's the biggest complaint was they had no way of, nobody knew anything. Nobody knew where to go, what to do, nothing.
It wasn't until Paul got a flashlight to lead the group down the stairs that anyone really knew what to do at all. Tonight, they are safe after being treated for smoke inhalation, but they're not very happy with New York City.
I hate it. I'll never come back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really don't like it. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like no one knows what's going on here. No one knows where they're at and how to get anywhere, and I'm just really miserable. But maybe I've just had a bad experience.
And as Melissa and Paul were trapped on the roof, firefighter Bill Chupa was battling his way through black smoke in the lobby of the building. He says that it was like walking into the Twilight Zone.
It was like an apocalypse, I guess you could say. It was a very heavy, dense smoke situation. We knew there was an explosion of some kind, but we weren't sure where it was. But we did know that there was a hell of a lot of smoke.
The lights came back on gradually through the night, as if the giant towers were waking slowly from their worst nightmare. As helicopters continued to ferry rescue workers to the top and victims back down, hundreds of firefighters went floor to floor.
The search will continue until we feel certain that there are no other survivors or that there are no other people in the rubble that have trapped or killed.
Earlier, as dozens of ambulances arrived to remove the injured, the Emergency Medical Services top boss said paramedics were confronted with literally hundreds of potential patients.
It was a chaotic situation with a mixture of people that were on the streets with people who were being evacuated out of the building, so it was hard to assess who was injured, who wasn't, and get that sorted out early on.
For those stuck way upstairs, sorting it out was secondary to getting out.
We heard a loud bang and the building shook. And that, I mean, the 110-story building, and that shakes, that was scary.
We could see there was emergency lighting in the stairway until we got near the 40th floor, and then the lights went out and it was pitch black and you couldn't see it all. And that was the second time when we thought, this is it.
With Mayor Dinkins finishing a trip to Japan, The man in charge of rescue operations was First Deputy Mayor Norman Steisel.
There's an enormous crater that's been formed. But the explosion was clearly a huge explosion. There's a lot of debris in the crater. It's building materials. It's cars caught on fire that were in the garage. There are mechanical systems, pipes from the steam system were blown up.
For hours, fire department investigators have said privately that they have found evidence of an explosive device. But late tonight, police officials who are working with the FBI remain non-committal.
In terms of what caused the explosion, we still don't know yet. It is possible, but we can't confirm that because we haven't been down there to see what the actual cause was. We do know that it was a tremendous explosion.
Many just couldn't risk the walk down the stairs, and so it took a helicopter to ferry some of the pregnant and infirm from the top of the still smoke-filled World Trade Center to safety. Back on the ground, buses brought them to the medical attention they will need after spending most of the day and much of the night breathing in the smoke. Tell me what you guys been doing up there for the last several hours.
Basically sitting around in the dark.
Could you not get to a stairway?
Actually, we could, but it was too dark to come down.
It would have had no access to elevators, power went off, everything was smoky.
Rescue workers brought in supplies and oxygen, all still being used to help the injured late into the evening. Firefighters spent the night in a furious door-to-door search throughout the buildings, looking for victims, and they found some, barely conscious in a trapped elevator more than 40 floors up.
We're opening up elevators. When we opened up the elevator 1A, there were 10 people laying on the floor. It was amazing. And they were all semi-conscious. The only noise we heard was one woman cry. And they were all in need. We threw our masks on them and called for oxygen. And the last report is a couple of people are still in serious condition. But it was amazing. Our husband and wife said goodbye to each other.
Husband and wife team, it was incredible. When we opened the door up, they were all laying there. It was like it was an incredible sight.
All the other elevators that we'd open up, the people came running out. The people in this elevator just kind of laid there. They didn't think they were going to come out.
Earlier in the day, they streamed from the stairway by the hundreds, the joyful end of a 2-hour journey down the smoke-filled staircase, staggering, coughing, crying in a mix of fear, relief, and anger.
That place is a death trap. Let me tell you something. There was smoke where there shouldn't be smoke. I was on the 107th floor, and we heard the bang, and that place filled up in 5 minutes.
By nightfall, the emergency room entrance was quiet as downtown hospitals started to get back to normal after treating 184 of the World Trade Center victims.
We've treated and released 119 of them, and probably half a dozen or so have been already admitted to the hospital and brought upstairs, and a number of others, probably as many as a dozen more, are very likely to be kept overnight for continued observation.
One of the city's smaller hospitals, downtown is closest to the Trade Center, so many of the first victims were brought here as the afternoon wore on and the crisis mounted, most suffering smoke inhalation, all dazed by the experience. 2 Port Authority police were in the lower level of the building where the blast occurred and told a tale of smoke, shock, and confusion.
I fell down onto the ground, and I noticed next thing I know, a ceiling tile was falling on top of me, and I was like covered with some ceiling tile and construction debris.
I just heard the bang. I got flipped up in the air, and then everything came down on me.
For the victims who work on the upper floors of the World Trade Center, the shock came slower in the form of creeping black smoke, but the fear was every bit as real.
It was hard to see anything. It was just like all smoke, and just you could barely see where you were going.
Did you see any of your other colleagues? Were they hurt?
No, just smoke inhalation, but I hope everybody got out all right.